Okay. Hi everybody. I'm Sarah Zolton Arthur, one of your Fated Mates authors, and I'm super nervous to be doing this because I don't ever put myself on video. I hardly put myself on camera to begin with. So this is something for me. I'm not real great at reading a teleprompter, but I've got my little Kindle set up so I can read for you today. Um, my story is called Soar, A Warrior's Fight, and it is a novella that falls between books one and books two in my brand new, coming out in May actually. The first book comes out in May, um, trilogy called Immortal Elements. Now, Soar is a standalone. You don't have to have read Flight in order to understand it, follow along, or anything. But um, uh, it's about eagle shifters, actually. So if you like big, sexy birdmen, it's the story for you. um, let's see. Um, it takes place in our world, but since it's fantasy, they um, instead of nesting in trees, they build their cities on top of mountains. So regular old folks like us can't see them. Um, so let's see. It's basically in the first book, which is Flight, which comes out in May. You meet Shadow and his mate Mina, and Soar is about Shadow's brother Crest, who you also meet in Flight, but and then the woman that he is destined to be with. Hi. Oh my God. I honestly feel like I could puke a little bit right now. So please be kind to me. um, okay. Um, so um, I'm just gonna, I suppose I'm gonna start. Um, this is chapter 4 from Soar, and the title of this chapter is The Witching Hour. And okay, so a little bit of setup. She is uh, trying to make a potion uh, to help herself out of a situation. And she's not a born witch. She's trying to learn how to be a witch. So um, that should help you. Okay, so here we go. Whoa! I shoved back from the table and jumped out of the chair so fast it toppled over with an ear-piercing bang against the floor and the quiet library. Stupid, I knew, because they were my hands connected to my body. Abraham laughed. I glowered at him. Dude, I've never had blue electric hands before. I'd like to see you react any different. He laughed harder. What are you going to do with it now? Good question. With my still blue fingers that surprisingly didn't scorch the paper, I flipped back a couple of pages until I found the paragraph I was after. It says that I'm supposed to ground myself with the earth. That makes the magic stronger. How do I do that? With a shrug, he began flipping through more pages. Then he stopped abruptly. Maybe it means meditate. Clear your mind before you try to whip up a potion. Speaking of whipping up potions, where will I get the stuff I need, and where will I actually get to brew the stuff without Jacinta discovering me? He thought about it for a moment or so, tapping a finger against his lips. What if we go to the kitchen and at the same time you make cookies or something mundane? You also work on what you need to work on to knock her out. You know, that's not a bad idea. Shouldn't I try some small potions first? Well, you already have the glow hands, which I assume most new practitioners wouldn't take to as fast. And I don't know how much time we'll have or how many tries in the kitchen before she catches on that you're up to something. Okay, so now we're looking for a recipe book. What did they use to call potions? I snapped my fingers in rapid succession as if that would help jog my memory. And holy hell, if it didn't actually work. Tinctures, I shouted a little louder than necessary, causing Eve to jump in his seat. Setting the book I had been reading out onto one of the chairs excuse me, next to me so I didn't lose it in the fray. Quickly, I turned to the jumbled mass of text, checking each cover along with Ibrahim for the word tincture. Easier said than done, as the majority of them weren't written in English. And I really had to pull from the stores in my brain to figure out the word in all those languages. My father would have been all over this mission and probably have found what we needed in less than a minute. I, however, wasn't my dad. Thinking about my dad made me think about how much I missed my dad, and I could feel the tears begin to prickle along the rims of my eyes. But now wasn't the time to grieve my fallen family. I could take all the time I needed once I was free of this place. Once we narrowed the stacks down to about 20 books, we stared at the arduous task of flipping through each page to find a powerful knockout potion. Though Eve didn't know nearly as many languages as me, so my pile was way higher than his. Temporary death. He read the words from a page out loud to me. Sorry? I asked. This tincture is called temporary death. Here. He lifted the book, turned it to face me, and handed it off. Ingredient after ingredient looked pretty ominous. Words like nightshade and belladonna jumped out at me. One of those in a brew could knock you for a loop. No wonder the name of it was temporary death. Will we be able to get some of these herbs? I asked, because that would make or break this mission. Incredible, the sheer number of ingredients listed. Some of these I was sure we could find in the city market, although they might have seemed exotic at one time, and maybe still were. Imi City sat smack dab in the middle of the spice road. It was what we couldn't get at the market which concerned me. Leave that to me. I'm not without my sources, you know. Ooh, intriguing. I leave it in your capable hands then. Can you get me out of this place down into the market? I asked. You're crazy and you're going to get us both killed, he said. But he said it laughing. That's not a no. Everyone knows you are the Regent's favorite. I'll arrange it. Oh, and houseboy? I paused to take in the full effect of his glare. I'll need some shoes. Were eunuchs supposed to flip their charges the bird? I threw my head back and laughed as we gathered up books we weren't going to use, and he helped me carry them back to the shelf. Ebe chose to keep the two we were hanging on to back in his room, so Jacinta couldn't see them. Then he walked me to the clothing room, which I didn't even know they had a clothing room, to try on sandals. They clearly weren't used to shoeing feet as small as mine, but eventually he found a child's pair to fit. For the first time since my family's murder, my kidnapping, I stepped outside. The heat of the sun felt glorious on my in desperate need of vitamin D skin, so much that I stood in the spot soaking in the rays, unable to get my feet to move. When Ibrahim cleared his throat, I knew it was time to get moving. I sighed contentedly and walked along the cobblestone road next to him, my entire being delightfully assaulted by the warm, pungent aromas of cardamom, turmeric, cumin, cinnamon, along with lesser ones I couldn't exactly put my finger on. The streets were alive with carts led by donkeys. My dad would have loved it here. He had actually gotten the chance to visit. It was as if I'd stepped back in time. No cars, no satellites secured to the sides of buildings or cables running to them from transformers. There weren't any signs of technology anywhere. I didn't know places like this still existed in the world. Men and women bustled about the marketplace, mostly male vendors. A woman nearby opened a reusable bag of netting to pack her grocery items. She wore a plain brown frock and her abundant hair pulled back in a long braid hanging down the middle of her back. She had a small child with her, a boy, dressed similarly in a brown tunic and pants and sandals. Most of these people seemed to know Ibrahim as they waved or shouted their hellos at him. I left the small talk to him, choosing to dip my head or smile politely at the passers-by. When we stopped at the first stall, he bundled the innocuous spices along with dried ground belladonna, which many people purchase to make regular old insomnia-fighting sleep aids. Then onto the fresh herbs. We bought saffron, oregano, spearmint, and preserved lemons, which, yes, weren't herbs, but sold alongside them. We wandered down the walkway, sampling different meat dishes and desserts, something made from a phyllo pastry with honey and ground nuts, similar to baklava, flavored by cinnamon and cardamom. I actually had Eve buy us some for later. Finally, we made it to the last stall in the back of the market. It was there that he asked to see the proprietor, a tall, lanky man, distinctly not rock, stepped out from behind the curtained-off area. He held the curtain open and motioned for us to move inside. We sat and the man offered us tea. The cups lacked handles and were painted with bright colors and patterns. While I sipped my tea, Ibrahim got down to business. "It's happening," he said to the man. "Yeah, what? Was he selling me out? I thought I could trust him." The man didn't reply, but dipped his head, stood up, and left behind a second curtain. After hearing him discuss something heatedly with another, this one sounded like an old woman, he came back through the curtain. An elderly, wrinkled lady followed him. She looked at me and tilted her head to the side. Her eyes went blank, and then after a couple of seconds, she blinked, sat down across from me, and took my hand in both of hers. Immediately, the bluish-white glow lit up my skin, and the electricity prickled. But instead of letting me go, she held on tighter. "There is dark and light within you," she whispered. What? Dark and light?" I asked. She nodded. "You seek the witchcraft, dark and light." This time I tried to pull my hand from her grasp, but she held on tighter still, squeezing to just shy of painful. "You have destiny surrounding you, child. Sit still and quiet your mind." What did she mean by I had destiny around me? The idea both filled me with immeasurable hope and scared the crap out of me. "Close your eyes," she ordered. I promptly followed her directions. "Good," she said. "Now picture a white dot." I did. "Do you see it?" At my nod, she continued. "Grow the dot. It's a portal. Open it large enough to see through. Do not let your mind wander anywhere away from the portal." The dot grew bigger and brighter, consuming every inch of darkness inside my mind until the portal was large enough for my entire consciousness to slip through, and I found myself confronted by a pair of startled, honey amber colored eyes. I gasped and felt a hand touch my shoulder, but it didn't belong to the old woman. It belonged to the owner of those enamoring eyes. My whole body lit up from the inside at that simple touch. Then I felt it. My invisible heartstring snapped taut and shot out of my body straight to him, into him. He jolted back, and I found myself in the tent with the old woman, still holding my hand once again. "Saraya?" Ibrahim touched my cheek, and I jumped, stumbling onto the floor, crashing the chair along with me. "Saraya," he said again, helping me up. "What did you see?" I shook my head because I couldn't talk about it. Like I actually couldn't put into words what I saw and what I felt. That touch from the honey-eyed man woke something inside me. I could still feel it now. I needed to get to him in a way that I knew he held answers I sought, and that scared the crap out of me because I intrinsically knew that destiny the old woman was referring to was tied up with that stranger on the other end of my heartstring. Eve helped me up. The old woman and the man with her both looked troubled, but didn't ask me any more questions. Instead, he left us for a moment and came back with a final ingredient we needed to make the potion: nightshade. What the hell had I gotten myself into? So, That was the end of chapter 4. If you're interested, clearly, you can read the rest on June 4th when Fated Mates comes out. So I hope that it was okay and I didn't fumble too badly. And I'm going to go now because, yeah, you guys have a good night.